All right, good afternoon, everyone. On this Friday afternoon, hope you're doing well, getting ready for Shabbos, and hopefully it should be a peaceful and enjoyable one. We're going to do a Rashi from the sixth Aliyah of this week's Parsha of Tetze. It's actually in this Parsha that we get the clearest indication possible that the punishment of tsaras comes because of the Avera of Lashon Hara. It's a commonly cited idea. It's a very commonly cited idea. It's not very clear in the Torah at all that this is the case. We kind of read it in tangentially to many places in the Torah, but it's not explicit. If you look back, certainly in Parshas Mitzorah right here, which I just brought up on my screen, Parshas Tazria, Mitzorah, talking all about tsaras, the nitty-gritty details of every single nega, every single blemish and what color it is and where it is and how the Kohen looks at it, and negayim of tsaras on our bodies, on our clothes, and on our homes, and so many different aspects of this, and the korbanos that have to be brought in the purification process and where the mitzvah has to go, detail after detail after detail, and never a mention of what the avera is that causes a person to be punished with negat tsaras. Never a mention explicitly. The best we have is this Rashi in Parshas Mitzorah, where he says that because the Torah tells us that the korban, the sacrifice bought by the mitzvah in the process of purification, comes from birds, Rashi gives us a little bit of a hint. Lefi hanegayim baim alashon hara, shu masa patit, pitputei dvarim, lefika huzkaku letziporim, l'taraso tziporim shemepatpatim tamir b'tzif kol. There's like a small hint of a remez in the fact that we bring a bird as the sacrifice for the purification of the mitzvah, that it's a nega, an affliction that comes because of Lashon Hara. Because Lashon Hara is about pitput, it's about moving our lips and mouthing and speaking. And birds are creatures that speak a lot. They speak with their mouth, their beak is moving constantly, they're mipatpatim. And therefore, because we bring that korban, it indicates that that must have been the problem to begin with, and we're trying to correct for it now in the purification process. It's such a far-fetched tangential connection. It's very, very hard to see. It's certainly not explicit in the Psukim. But in our Parsha, we have the clearest, not fully, not explicitly, but the clearest indication in the text of the Torah itself that tsaras is somehow related to Lashon Hara. So moving towards our Parsha, in the sixth Aliyah, one of the mitzvahs that we learn about is, again, the tsaras. Hishamar benega hatzaras, lishmor ma'od v'lasos k'chol asher yorueschem ha'kohanim alavim kasher tzivisim tishmeru la'asos. So obviously getting tsaras is not a mitzvah, but getting out of the process of tsaras and following all the laws governing when a person does have tsaras is certainly a mitzvah, and that's a mitzvah the Torah is reiterating over here and spelling out that we should be very careful when we get a nega tsaras to keep all of the halachos associated as God had commanded us, and to involve the Kohanim and the Leviim and everything that is supposed to happen in the process of purification. That's a standalone pasuk, a mitzvah in the parsha. The very next pasuk is Zachor es asher asa Hashem Elokecha leMiriam baderech b'tzeis chamim Mitzrayim. The parsha of Zachor, we have multiple Zachors in our parsha. We have Zachor Amalek at the end of the parsha. But first we have Zachor asher asa Hashem Elokecha leMiriam. We should always remember how Hashem had afflicted Miriam with tsaras, baderech b'tzeis chamim Mitzrayim, as we left Egypt. And there perhaps is a daily mitzvah to remember that which Hashem did to Miriam. It's part of the zechiros, sheish zechiros, the 6 constant reminders that we have to be remembering every day. If you look at the end of Shachris in any siddur, the mitzvah of Zachor asher asa Hashem Elokecha leMiriam. So here Rashi points out that the juxtaposition reinforces this notion that perhaps tsaras comes from Lashon Hara. Zachor asher asa. If you want to know how to be hishamer b'nega tsaras, not like the pshat of the pasuk, which means you should keep the laws of tsaras properly when you get it. But if you want to hishamer, you want to guard yourself from ever getting tsaras, you want to prevent yourself from getting this affliction, then al tisaper lashon hara. Don't speak lashon hara. Instead, zachor ha'asur leMiriam shedibra ba'achia v'lakta b'negayim. Instead, remember that Miriam spoke Lashon Hara and got negayim. She got afflicted with this tsaras. Remember that. you'll remember not to speak Lashon Hara, and therefore you'll prevent yourself from getting tzaras. That'll be the chain reaction of good that ensues. So according to Rashi, the juxtaposition here of Maisa Miriam, which in essence was a Maisa of Lashon Hara, juxtaposed to Hishamer Benegat Tzaras, teaches us that perhaps tzaras does come from the sin of Lashon Hara. So the incident of Miriam and the juxtaposition here of these two incidents in our parsha are perhaps the clearest indications in the Torah of this correlation between the two. I just will share with you something interesting that happened to me over the vacation that we were just on. It's not so related to tzaras, thank God, but it is related to Lashon Hara. And since the juxtaposition here, according to Rashi, is meant to reinforce to us that we should be careful about Lashon Hara, so I guess I'll speak to this as well. It was just quite coincidental. Sometimes things happen to you and they just hit you, min hashamayim, you say. There's got to be a message in there somewhere. So on the way up to Montreal, I stopped for Mincha Marav in Albany, in the shul in Albany. And on the way home from Montreal, I stopped for Mincha Marav in a shul in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. So just the places we happened to be at that moment when it was getting close to Shkia on the highway. Well, we planned it that way, but that's where it was convenient to stop. So both shuls I had never been to before. Both shuls had new rabbis that just started a week or two ago. And both of them were starting a new set of halachos between Mincha Marav. And both of them decided to teach Chafetz Chaim the halachos of Lashon Hara. It was like so random to me that I stepped into these two shuls by almost coincidence. They were both learning the same halachos of Lashon Hara. They were both going over the intro. It was a week apart, so I don't know where the guy in Albany was by the time I was in Cherry Hill, but both times they were speaking about the introduction of the Chafetz Chaim to Shmiras HaLashon and talking about the connection of Lashon Hara and Sinas Chinam and all of what ensues from there. So I thought that was fascinating. It hit me across the face, so to speak. Reminded me just about how important Lashon Hara is in general, but specifically during this time of Elul, to be careful about it as well. So we may not be afflicted, thank God, with tzaras, but nevertheless, we should try to be careful about Lashon Hara, especially around this time of year. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great Shabbos.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Shalom.
Thank you,
Bye,
Rabbi.
everyone. Take care.
Much shalom.
You too.